to a brand new season of Radio with Pictures with Femlink Pacific and FemTalk 89 FM, in conversation with diverse rural women leaders, members of the LGBT network, and disability rights activists. I'm Nandini Vandana, and thank you for tuning in. We've just concluded our second national consultation for 2018, and this week the focus has been on the rights of persons living with disability and what we need to know. Joining us in this episode, we have Vane Tuvuki, and she is representing the Koronumbu Women's Fellowship in Ba. Welcome to the show, Vane.
Okay.
We also have Sarojini Gander of the Nasivi Women's Club in Tavua. She is also a former advisory councillor. Thank you for joining us as well. And we have Jay Nasilasila, all the way from the Northern Division, and representing the Northern Youth with Disability and Supporters Association, and also the House of Colours. In this segment, we will be discussing how can we prepare for the cyclone season, which is coming up from November and going on to April 2018. And what are some of the key recommendations that are coming from women leaders from across the country? Jay, beginning with you, how can we ensure that communities, particularly persons from the LGBT network, can access disaster risk reduction, management, and response information?
I think the most important things when we talk about preparedness is for person with disability to always act on the weather updates, to be well informed, and also to be fast in responding to how important the weather update is, because the faster you are informed, it allows you more time to really prepare yourself. Yeah.
Would you say that media in the country is then accessible for persons living with disability?
For persons with disability, really, because when you talk about media accessibility for persons with disability, it's all breakdown into different forms. So if it would be accessible in terms of using sign language interpreter in all the news bulletin, so that it can be accessible for people with hearing impaired. And also, I think that's the only way that we can improve on the media.
Okay.
Yeah, the main media.
So, Sarojini, you come from Tavua, and when TC Winston struck our country in 2016, the Western Division was the most affected. Now, when we're coming to another cyclone season, what facilities do you think that we need available come the cyclone season?
Like, I'm talking about the ground root people. We are not access to some of the people. We don't have FP power at home, so they are not access to any kind of information. So the information which I get through Femlink Pacific is the first one I get it. So I have got some women's club around there, so I pass it to them, and they pass it to the village around there in the settlement. So some of the people, they are not access to the information at the right time.
What would you say would be your recommendation in regards to that, if they're not able to access information that makes them more vulnerable? Would that be correct?
Need all the people, they should have access to the FE power or the portable radios if they can, because there's some people are very poor there, they can't afford to buy all those things. So no matter they find, some of the people, they get free wireless and all those things, they can get the information through TV. Yes. But still there are some people, they don't have anything, they don't have TV at all, they don't have radio at home, so we just pass the message through our neighbors. That's what we do.
Thank you. Vane, how is the situation in Ba, and what do we need come the cyclone season?
As we know, most of us know when is our cyclone season in Fiji.
Yes.
So I'd really recommend that before cyclone season come, we need to disseminate on preparedness. Preparedness, we need to disseminate on preparedness in the communities. Awareness needs to be done on preparedness. What to pack, where to go to, especially the evacuation centers. It needs to be well equipped, strongly built, and also for not only for those of us in the community who are able, also persons living with disability should be disability friendly. So those are some of the things I really recommend, that preparedness dissemination should be done before cyclone season comes, because during TC Winston, I think it was done very late. Yeah, very late in the day. That's why most of the families faced. It was very devastating. Yeah? It was done very late. If it was done earlier, preparedness was done, dissemination was done earlier, then everybody would have been prepared and gone up. It was during cyclone, during TC Winston, then people were warned and then told where to go to. So those are some of the drawbacks that I thought happened during TC Winston.
You mentioned how people were then receiving information, or they want. Was it through the media, or was there awareness created?
Yes, for those of us, like I come from a settlement, in farming settlement, dissemination was done by our authorities, the advisory councils. They came around during, and it was through radio. I was lucky, one of those women that was lucky, were able to disseminate to my fellow club members, because I had it through the SMS message through Family Pacific before, and I think it was 1 week before TC Winston struck the country. I had to go, and then I told my friends, I told my club members, I told my family, those who live next to the sea. That was one of the the things that prepared us before TC Winston. I think, but those women who did not have access to information, access to radio, those who live in the interior, in the rural areas, isolated areas, did not receive messages. They were struck by TC Winston in a shock, and they did not prepare themselves well. That's why there was a lot of problems during TC Winston.
Thank you, Vani. Now, Sarojini, just from your perspective as a former advisory councillor, what were the challenges then, and what are some of the challenges that still exist for us post TC Winston?
There are a lot of things, like we still need the information. Information is the main thing. We should receive that one. If we don't have the information, we can't do anything. So I know we have been spreading all this news, because I've been moving around in my community I have talked with the women. So we always tell, this is the time, November to April, we should be careful and do our preparedness. So we are alerting them, but still some of them, they are careless. They don't want to do it. They just wait for the right time. When the time comes, then they run. But I think this is the main thing. When we get the information, we can do everything. But in our community, I can see the women are the first responders. They are doing all the work, but the men, they are not helping them.
Okay.
Even to when they want to secure their house, some of the women, they go up the roof and they do it themselves.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That just goes to show the resiliency that women have in our country, and thank you for those thoughts. Jay, when we talk about data, collation of data, and how local government structures mobilize during pre-cyclone season and also during post-disaster assessment periods, are the data available when it comes to then identifying the needs of different people in their community? Is that a challenge when it comes to really disseminating information to everybody?
I think the thing about the data was that it was not really the term that was used there, because they were talking about special needs, and like most of the people, when they tend to think that it was the other need, but they did not really know that it was specifically to identify a person with disability in that area. So I think they should have been particularly very specific on disability, and also if they're generally talking about disability, we would know which disability. So they should also put it as different types, in which type of disability, so that it can all covers, it easily identify this one might need this kind of assistive device after cyclone. Because I think one thing that we also after cyclone, after cyclone, some people also acquired their disability during that time. So that will help the DPOs to also identify the suitable assistive device that can be used for that particular person.
Thank you. Vani, you've also been included, you are included in some work of the Red Cross as well. What type of awareness do you think is needed, and who should be those responsible stakeholders that should be providing the relevant awareness, and when do you think they should have started or should start?
Usually for us in Red Cross, this is the time we've been doing dissemination. We've been doing awareness on before November comes. So for the last few months, we've been disseminating on preparedness. Since we had the long drought in the western side, we've been letting households to fill up their cans, their bottles, store water, and usually preparedness is done before the cyclone seasons come. I know we in Fiji, we know when is the cyclone season comes: November, December, and January. So those are the times that we disseminate. And the authorities that should be doing it is those who associate with themselves with DRR. We have the Save the Children's Fund there too. We also have the DISMAC committee there too, PAs from our local government. And I think there needs to be awareness done to the Turangani Chorus, advisory councillors, people who take leading roles in local government, and they need to be aware of how to know the cyclone season in Fiji, how to read, how to know the category when it comes to category. Category 5 is mentioned. They should know what is the intensity of that category 5.
Yes.
Right? So those are some of the things that people need to be taught, and they will be able to go and disseminate in their own communities, in their own language. You know, the language that is normally used by the MET office. You know, we can hardly understand some of the words, the terminology used. People in the grassroots level cannot they can't understand what it means to them.
Yes.
So if this authority, our leaders, like these consultations, we are taught these things. We for example, for Red Cross, we just had the ERT training, and the Met office came to us to teach us on the terminologies of and how to read how the cyclone is going. So this is one of the things we going to disseminate to our communities. So those are the things that should, they should come down to the ground, the grassroots level, to come and teach us on what it means, so that we are aware where is the eye, what intensity the eye has, and what about the other parts of the cycle. What is the intensity there? When some of them are saying, oh, this is just part of it, the eye is they're thinking it differently. This is just the part of the cyclone. It just come and just take off the sugarcane field, not a house. So those are some of the things that people need to be taught to know what it all this terminology means, and especially from the grassroots level. We are lucky, the women that are in consultation, women who have the space to share amongst ourselves. We're so lucky. What about those women out there, the children out there, and those in especially for the persons living with disability? Who's going to teach them? I think dissemination has a lot to do with our preparedness.
Sarojini, is it the same? Vani, you raised an important point, the terminology that is sometimes used. What does it mean when the wind is 60 knots? Or how is that also a challenge that is faced in terms of accessing information?
Because the people, they should know which category the cyclone will be. This is a challenge. And we also need the awareness program, because people, the women, they don't know which category this is going to be. And even we are talking about only the cyclone season, but for my information, we are staying in Western. Most of the farmers are there. Most of the people are farmers there. We have got women farmers too. But this dry spell is also a disaster to us. it is also affecting us.
Yes.
Because we can't do much there. We can't do our agriculture farming, we can't do sugarcane farming, we can't do anything.
Yes. Now that you've mentioned the dry spell,
Yeah.
would that then affect food security in terms of storage coming up to the cyclone?
Yes, it's affecting us. Because now the women, they are just sitting idle there. They don't have anything to do. They can't do backyard gardening. They can't, because the WOF has already stopped them to watering their gardens. So they can't use the water. They can't do gardening in full scale or in backyard gardening too. They can't do anything.
Has there been any mechanisms provided by local government structures to be able to inform communities on how best they could be resilient when it comes to farming in these harsh weather conditions?
But the government has already given us some grant for chicken farming, goat farming and all those things. We received the grant, but still it needs water. For goat farming and all the farming, we need water. If there is no grass, there won't be any goat.
Yes, of course.
If you want to keep chicken, we have to keep use water. So all those things, we still are affected. In whole of the year, we are affected.
Thank you, and we will have to cut our conversation short as we will take a break. But stay tuned. In our next segment, we will continue conversation and we will be talking on disability rights on your very own Women's Weather Watch station. Welcome back, and you're joining us on the brand new season of Radio with Pictures with Femlink Pacific and Fem Talk 89 FM. I'm in conversation with Vane Tuvuki, Sarojini Gounder, and Jay Nasilasila. In this segment, we focus on what are the challenges facing women, especially diverse women in our communities, when it comes to accessing decision-making spaces. I'll start with you, Jay. In particular, what are some of the challenges faced by persons living with disability in terms of actually sitting at the table that is making decisions when it comes to disaster risk management processes?
One of the major challenges that persons with disability usually face is that people used to look at our disability and not the ability that we have. Generally, they used to see us of our physical features of who we are, and they tend to not really recognize what we have, what we can do within ourselves. I think that's one of the major challenges that we have a person with disability generally face. And that's also linked with the stigma in place within the community, and also in different spaces, looking at the infrastructure, accessing services, accessing how can we be in that particular meeting in that particular time, and looking at if it's not accessible, then we wouldn't be able to make it. So I think that's some of the challenges that we persons with disability usually go through in accessing decision making or in leadership, to be in leadership. Also for me personally, I've been leading few small organizations from Lambasa, and I've seen it most of the time. My constituent itself always look at me from a different perspective, but I did not really see that as something to put me down. I saw that as something that built me up to really achieve what I want to achieve in my leadership. Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. So would you say that discrimination is one of those very major factors that affects participation?
I would say that, because mostly, for instance, when a decision is made and then people used to agree upon it, and then later on, then I heard that they would go and talk about it and all those kind of things. But then I think it's for me, it's normal. I see it as something that keeps me going and makes me stronger.
Okay, so that has empowered you to actually participate. That's really good. Moving the conversation to rural women leaders, and so how do you think we should strengthen capacity of women leaders to be participating in decision-making spaces?
First of all, I should say that we should be voice out that we should be in the decision making process, because I've been a counselor for 10 years, and through that I have learned that when I was a counselor, I was called in all the meetings and I can voice out. And when I used to go, I used to take few other leaders from my community. But since this year, I have been not invited in any of the meetings. So we don't know what's happening. So if we are not invited in anything, so we don't know what is happening. So we are not informed we are not allowed to have a decision to do some kind of decision making in any of the projects or any of the things. So this is the main challenge with us.
So can I then say that when you are an advisory counselor, then you get to participate in those
Yeah.
spaces? So when you are not in a position of decision making, it becomes harder to then participate?
It's very hard, because none of the women, they are still calling me, Sarojini, something happening there when we don't know anything. So I have to call some of the people and then ask them what happened in that meeting.
Okay.
It's like that, no? So we are not invited in all the meetings. Even the farmers, we have got lady farmers there, but we are not invited in anything.
Okay. So these meetings that you're referring to would be at the local government level?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Vani, rather, sorry. What would you say when it comes to disaster coordination, and how is it for women? Is it a challenge to be included?
Yes. I'd say previously when women were not bold enough to come out and not taught various ways of, it was a challenge. But I think we are coming out of our safe space now. We are voicing out. We've been to so many consultations, and it's good to see that, especially in the district in Ba, and I think to most of the western side, you see women coming out. We have women parliamentarians, women MPs now. Some of those who have been joining our 1325 club, they've taken up MP posts in some of the parties that are campaigning now. So I think that's one of the boosts in women. We have started coming out, and then we have started sharing our information. We've started encouraging other women. We need to come out from our safe space to be able to disseminate, to be able to, if you want to take part in the local government, you really need to come out yourself. It's your own, own effort, and effort as women, feminist people coming out together, voicing out together.
Thank you. And just to continue, you said a very important point. When women are included in decision-making spaces, then women are able to then take the issues of women to the table?
Yes, women are able to take the issues of women when they are there at that level. And then you will be able to share the needs of women, because women know their own needs. And not only women in all diversities. I'm talking about the disabled, the LGBT. So if we are put into that position, we are able to voice out. So it's, as I was saying, you need to hold hands together to be able to fight that fight, to be able to reach that, and to be able to reach the 50% participation. Who's seeing it? Who's seeing it that it's met? Yes. We will be able to stand up together and voice out. Where is our 50% of women? Where is in this committee? There's 10 there. Okay, we need to have 5 women here. We need to be there. We need to be strong and voice out. We need to say it. We are claiming for that 50% participation. You don't claim it, you won't have it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Claiming status in terms of really challenging the status quo when it comes to participation of women. Jay, what would you say is needed to strengthen capacity of persons from the disability network to participate? How can we hold state accountable to provide those?
I think for persons with disability, they themselves need to be really strong. When I say this, I mean they have to be really not be. They have to be empowered once they're empowered, then they're able to overcome all those challenges. Because I can say that I did go through that, and there was once a time that we were just like sitting down idle. Our voice was not being heard during that time. But then we need to, reclaim spaces and also ensure that we are participating on this different level. But yeah, basically, person with disability themselves need to be strong and get empowered. Yeah, because if they are not empowered, then I would say that even though opportunity may be available for them, but then they won't be really coping well, because they themselves are not into, have that much courage to take up that space.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. And that's a wrap for segment 2. What we've seen is participation is key, and having the accessible resources for diverse women in communities is also essential when it comes to having women sitting at the decision-making table. We'll take a break, and in the next segment, we'll be looking at key recommendations and messages that the women will be sharing with their communities. Thank you. Welcome back, and we're in conversation with women leaders from across our network, and we're talking about what is disability rights, what is needed when it comes to cyclone preparedness messages, and what are the key recommendations from the Rural Women Leaders Community Media Network of Famling Pacific. In this segment, we're looking at some of the key responsibilities and also recommendations when it comes to safety, security, and dignity of women and girls, also persons living with disabilities, and the LGBT network when it comes to protection during disasters. Jay, what would you say would be your key recommendation when it comes to ensuring that safety and security is not compromised?
My key recommendation would be that talk about evacuation centers. All evacuation centers to be accessible, and also would be made in such a way that it caters for all different types of disability. It's always a challenge in the Northern Division that we have evacuation centers that just like temporary. They just created one just for when it's cyclone is approaching. So I think it's best to always plan ahead.
Yes.
And it should be a specific evacuation center for person with disability, and also during evacuating time. Evacuating person with disability from places to places. Some of the challenges that person with disability used to face is, the authorities that they work during that time, is that how they handle person with disability is always they always go through pain because of that. There's no proper planning on the evacuation methods that they take. Like person with disability have been carried to the evacuation center before, and then their equipments are left, and then someone else need to bring it later. So I think there should be a proper planning with the respective authority who works during that time, in the Northern Divisions, specifically speaking, because we have really experiencing that, and also inside the evacuation center, the privacy of person with disability is very much it's very important for person with disability to have that privacy for themselves. People who use diapers, the changing of diapers, all those kind of things that we need to take note of when they design when they located a evacuation center specifically for person with disability.
Thank you, Jay. Sarojini, what would be your views on ensuring that safety and security is not compromised?
Like Jay, we also need a good evacuation centers, like with all the bathrooms, the facility should be there, because mostly we have got a school there, so the washroom is very far away from the rooms, and it's very hard for the old people in the disability to move to the washrooms. And also it's in interior places, like we need street lights so that we are violence free. While it's hurricane time, cyclone is coming, so some people they move to another neighbor's house, so it's not safe when they are moving, the girls and the women especially. So all these things we have to take care. We do the preparedness for everything, but while moving during cyclone it's very hard, we don't have transportation. So last time one family was under the bed, since some people come for the rescue after about 3-4 hours. So with the small baby they were under the bed. So this kind of thing, we want transportation, especially in interior areas they don't have transportation. And also there's a lot of rivers, it's getting in flooded, so we need a good road with street lights.
Thank you, Sarojini. And just lastly, Vani, what would be your message when it comes to ensuring that women and girls are protected and that there is a reduction of gender-based violence or any form of violence and abuse in evacuation centers?
Yes, I agree with Jay and Sarojini. A lot of pre-plannings needs to be done on preparedness,
Yes.
and how to get to the evacuation center, and also the community need to be trained on how to handle person living with disability,
Yes.
all forms of disability, how to handle them from their homes to the evacuation center. And yes, the evacuation center needs to be very safe, safe for women and children and persons living with disability. The security needs to be very tight too. We need a lot of support from the security services, of the government of the day. Yeah, and also we have in each community we have sub committees, disaster committees. So maybe those sub disaster committees need to be trained well. Need to be trained well to be able to get the people safely into the evacuation center. Yes, the evacuation centers, most of the evacuation centers that we went to during the last Josie, Kenny, and TC Winston, it was blown away. It really nearly killed people running to the evacuation center, whereas their own homes were standing there. Were okay, yeah. So evacuation centers, if by the government of the day, it needs to be really built properly, very strong. And another thing I recommend is the drilling. We need to wake up on the drills, how to do evacuation drills in all communities.
Yes.
We really need to do evacuation drills. Evacuation drills are very important because we don't want people to be running here and there, and during a disaster and getting themselves killed or hurt because they don't know where to run to, how to run, and how to get to the evacuation center properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Vani. Those were key recommendations. We've talked about access to information, access to infrastructure, and also what is needed when we consider an evacuation center to be a safe place, and then there are challenges when accessing it. So that's our episode of Radio with Pictures for today. Thank you, Jay, Vani, and Sarojini for joining us on the first episode of this new season of Radio with Pictures. Don't forget, you can continue to follow the conversation via our Twitter handle @FemLinkPacific, or log on to our Facebook page, and of course by tuning into Fem Talk 89 FM in Lambasa and Suva. Until the next time, thanks for your company and bye for now.